So, nobody has asked for this, but I'm a huge dork and I haven't done it in a year, so today I'm gonna be doing an updated bookshelf tour. If you've kept up with me in the past year or so, I have gotten a lot of books. Like, I have almost 200 books now. How did this happen? I don't know. If you're new to the program, the first bookshelf tour I technically did it for one of my friends who wanted to see what books I had, and I didn't really have a bookshelf. I just was pulling things out from under my bed, and it was very unprofessional, but for some reason people still really liked it, so that's cool. I did a second bookshelf tour when I got my new bookshelf, which is the bookshelf I have now, and I don't know, not a lot of people cared about it. I thought it was really crappy, so I'm just gonna redo it. We're gonna pretend like you haven't seen the first two. So if I'm explaining things and you're like, Jenna, you already told this to us, then suck it up and fast forward the video to a place that you haven't heard me talk about. So let's just go ahead and get started. So we are up here starting at the top of the bookshelf. Top shelf, yes. And as you can tell, it is very interestingly organized. So we're just gonna go. All the way on the left is my collection of Sword of Truth books by Terry Goodkind. I don't know if you've heard of this series. Not a lot of people talk about it on BookTube. I got the first book for Regan a couple weeks ago, so she has that. It's an adult fantasy series, and these are all in it, and as you can tell, it's very long, and there's like at least 11 books, and most of them are over 500 pages, and yeah, it's a commitment. This is the first one, Wizard's First Rule, which I read back in 2010 when I was a sophomore in high school, and it looks kind of big and long, but it was so good, and if you haven't read this series, I would highly recommend it. It's one of my all-time favorite fantasy series. If we move a little bit over to the right, we have a very special collection. This is my Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire area. This is a paperweight dragon egg that I got when I got the first season on DVD. So that's collectible and awesome. And then over here we have Daenerys as a tiny little bobblehead type thing that doesn't actually bobble, that I got from my friend Civi, so thank you Civi, it looks wonderful on my shelf. In the back, you probably have seen this series around. It is Song of Ice and Fire. Whoa! We have Game of Thrones, Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords, Feast for Crows, A Dance with Dragons, and there's still 2 more books to come. Currently, I need to read the last 2 in this area. So the next section on my top shelf, I didn't really plan on doing this at the beginning, but I didn't really have that much room, so I was like, hey, stack them to the top. All of my classic-y type books. Granted, there's 1 or 2 in there that aren't technically classics, but they kind of go in the same area. So on top, I don't know if you can see, but I have Catcher in the Rye, which I read when I was a sophomore in high school for extra credit one time. Then we have 1984, which I also read in school. It is my favorite classic. I haven't read it in a while, but I love it. Great classic because it's so easy to read, super interesting. It's kind of like a YA book, like dystopian, but it's classic. Next, of course, is East of Eden, which I did a research paper on in sophomore year. Wow, a lot of books from sophomore year. But I got an A on the paper, and I really liked the book. It has a lot of like biblical allusions and stuff, so I would highly recommend that one as a classic. And then we have Wuthering Heights, which I have never read, and I probably will never read, but I got it in my collection anyways. And then we have 9 Stories by J.D. Salinger, which is a short story collection book thing. But I have read, I think, all but 1, and they're weird stories, but like, for some reason they just make me kind of happy. Like, the kind of book you would read on a rainy day and not understand what's going on, but smile anyways. Then, of course, there is The Odyssey of Homer, which I read my freshman year in college, which was last year, and I didn't technically read it, but I have it, and I started reading it, so classic. And then, of course, we have The Book Thief, which is technically not really a classic, but it probably might be in the future. It's just a really good historical fictional read. I'm sure you know what it is. Everybody knows. And then, of course, Les Mis. Yeah, I'm almost halfway through it. And it's Les Mis. I've always wanted to read it, and I'm almost done. Not really, kind of. And then we have Pride and Prejudice, which technically is not my copy. It's my mom's, which I forgot to give back to her, but that's okay. And then Forever Amber, which I bought that book on a whim. I had seen a picture of one of my favorite musicians reading it, and I was like, that's a great book, I should buy it and read it and love it just like my musician person. And I spent $15 on it on Amazon. Got it. Took one look at it, and then I was like, nope. It's kind of set in the same time period as like Pride and Prejudice, probably a little bit before Pride and Prejudice, but it's got that same kind of like historical feel, England-y type of thing. I don't know really what it's about, but I have it. So that's all my classic-y books, and then all the way on the right is my sci-fi section. Not really, because I have a couple roaming on the rest of the shelf, but that's like my two main sci-fi books. The Host by Stephanie Meyer, which if you haven't read it, you should read it. It's wonderful. And then of course, The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey, which is such a good book. I'm so excited for the sequel to come out this year. It's gonna be so good, guys. So good. So that is my top shelf. Now we're moving on to my second shelf, which is basically contemporary crazy. This is like pretty much all my contemporaries. Over here I do have a couple like nonfiction and my C.S. Lewis collection, but overall it's contemporary up the wazoo up in here. So if we look all the way on the left, I have The Last Lecture, which is kind of in my nonfiction area. It is very short. If you haven't read it, I would suggest it because it's just a really good book for advice, for life, and it's really, really fast. I read it in a school day. I ended up doing a presentation on it from one of my classes in high school, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed it, and I thought it had a lot of good advice. Next, of course, is, like I said, my C.S. Lewis collection. I have Mere Christianity, the Screwtape Letters, and then the Space Trilogy, which is Out of the Silent Planet, Paralandra, and That Hideous Strength. I have not read either of any of these, but I have read Mere Christianity and the Screwtape Letters. I like Mere Christianity more, but I think the Screwtape Letters is like a classic Christian novel that you gotta read. If you're a Christian, you gotta read it. Next, like I said, is most of my nonfiction collection. It's very, very small, which makes me kind of sad, but, you know, what can you do? First we have Don't Sleep There Are Snakes, which is a book that I read for my freshman first year seminar thing. Next, of course, is How Not to Write a Novel, which is a book I got from my friend Laura, and she gave it to me when we were both sophomores in high school, and we weren't really great friends at the time. We were just acquaintances who both liked writing, and she gave it to me, and then pretty much our friendship became what it is today. Basically, How Not to Write a Novel is how not to write a novel. It has a lot of tips on what you should do to not get a novel published, to not finish a novel, to have a bad novel, and so basically it's like telling you how to write a good novel by telling you how to write a bad novel. If you're a writer, I would highly recommend getting that because it's so entertaining and funny. Into the Wild by John Krakauer, which I love it. It's just so cool. I don't know if you like the Transcendentalism period, but that was definitely one of my favorite time periods to study during English class in high school, and I just really love that book because I could never do it. I could never give up all of this to go traveling. Never. Next is Let Hope In by my Nashville pastor Pete Wilson, and I have not actually finished it. I watched most of his preaching series on the book, so I'm just kind of letting myself take a break from him for a while, but he's really a great speaker, and the things he has to say about faith especially are just really awesome, and I really enjoy him. So if you like books about faith and you've read a lot of C.S. Lewis, I would highly recommend looking into Pete's work because he's pretty awesome. Next, of course, we have Never Let Me Go by, I can never pronounce this name, Kazuo Ishiguro. I've never actually finished this book. I started it a while back, like 2 or 3 years ago, got about halfway-ish, and then I gave up because I had heard really good things about it and the movie, and I don't know, I just didn't get it, and I never got to the part where it was like sci-fi-y, where you figure out what happens like afterwards, I guess. I just haven't really enjoyed it, and I'm kind of hoping in the future I'll like come back to it, but I haven't yet. So The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, which I read in high school, and I mean, I feel like it's one of those books that I had to read it because everybody had read it already, and so I was like, okay, what's this about? And it wasn't terrible, but it did take me a while to get through, and I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Now we're getting into serious contemporary stuff. So we have Panic by Lauren Oliver, which I got as an ARC from my aunt a couple months ago, and it was just okay. I have a book talk up about that, and I think I gave it 3 stars. Next, of course, is Looking for Alaska by John Green. It's the only John Green book I have. Next, we have my huge stack of YA crap. All the way at the top, we have Dear John by Nicholas Sparks, which I read in high school, and I did not enjoy it like I thought I would. Next is Shrinking Violet by Danielle Joseph, which I randomly picked up at a Borders a couple years ago. Laura makes fun of me because she thinks it's kind of stupid, but I think it's cute. Next, of course, is Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. It's the only Colleen Hoover I don't have on my Nook. I have almost all of her other books on my Nook, and I just finished it recently, and it's really cute, and there was this really interesting plot twist that I was not expecting, and it's just really unique and different. Next, of course, are the Stephanie Perkins books, which I haven't read yet, Anna and the French Kiss and Lola and the Boy Next Door. I have them on my TBR list for June at the moment, but haven't really gotten into them. Next is my Deb Coletti collection, and it started out with The Fortunes of Indigo Sky, which I bought myself a while ago. I picked it up on a whim at Target, and I really enjoyed it, and Deb Coletti is just a really good contemporary writer. If you have not read her books, read them. The next one I read was Honey Baby Sweetheart, which Laura got me, and it's so cute. You know, it's just one of those good summer reads where you read it and you're like, oh, this would never happen, but I think it's cute. And then, of course, I have not read Wild Roses, but I got that one from Laura as well. Then, of course, is Last Song by Nicholas Sparks, my all-time favorite contemporary novel, and I've read it at least 3 times. It's like my classic contemporary comfort book. And then, of course, I have my Just One Day collection. These two should be switched, but it starts with Just One Day, and then it goes to Just One Year. And I really like Just One Day. It's one of my all-time favorite contemporary reads, so if you haven't read that one, definitely read that one. Just One Year is kind of a letdown. Finally, at the bottom, the only Rainbow Rowell book I actually have is Eleanor and Park, and I have a book review up of that one, and it's really cute, and I wrote a song about it. Next in line is my Sarah Dessen collection, because pretty much everybody has a Sarah Dessen collection, if you're a girl. The first one I got was Just Listen, and that one just sparked all of the contemporary everything. And then, of course, we have The Truth About Forever, which is just really good and really cute, and it's like one of those classic summer books that you wish could actually happen to you, but it doesn't. Then, of course, we have Someone Like You, which I honestly don't remember. I know some girl has a baby. And then This Lullaby, which I like, but I don't think I like it as much as these two. Of course, Lock and Key, which I kind of don't remember that much, but I think I liked it when I read it. And then finally, in the last section, I have my Jodi Picoult books. The classic My Sister's Keeper, which everybody has read, I'm sure. The 10th Circle, which is my personal favorite of all of her books. I think it's really good. I haven't read all her books, but still. And then Salem Falls, which I had to read for class in English sophomore year. And then, of course, Sing You Home, which is one of her newer books, and it came with a CD soundtrack type of thing, and I was really interested in it. And it's really good if you want to read a book about like gay rights and gay marriage and stuff like that. I really like Jodi Picoult because she's raw and she is contemporary, but it's less of like, oh my gosh, love me contemporary, and it's more like, I just raped you contemporary. That is the second shelf. Now we're on to the third shelf. It is packed, as you can tell. This is all of my YA stuff. It's not really contemporary. This is just random one books that I don't have the rest of the series for. And some of them I've read, some of them I haven't. So all the way at the bottom we have Uninvited by Sophie Jordan. I got that one because I ended up going to a signing with Sophie Jordan, and she signed it for me, and she was really sweet, and it was a really frustrating book. And I'm really excited for the second one. And then, of course, we have Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which I got at a used bookstore. It is like mint condition, and it cost me $1. Ruby Red, which I also got at a used bookstore, and I haven't read the rest of the series. It was okay. Next, we have Crescendo, which is the second book in the Hush Hush series. I did not record anything about this book on my channel when I read it. Basically, I kind of hated it. It was one of the worst books I've ever read. Next we have books that I haven't read yet, and that starts with The House of the Scorpion, which I got for my birthday this year from my friend Sibby, who's awesome, and I don't even really remember what it's about, but it sounded really creepy, so I'll be reading it eventually. Beautiful Creatures, I got that around Christmas time last year because I saw the movie, really wanted to know if the book was like the movie. I have not read it yet, but I plan to eventually. Then, of course, I have The Pledge that I got from my friend Cambria for my birthday, and I had asked for it because I was going to go to a signing with Kimberly Durting, but I ended up not going. I still want to read the book, of course, but it's kind of a letdown that I didn't go to the signing. Vampire Academy, which I got for my birthday from my friend Marian, and I have not read it yet. Everybody tells me to read it. Eyes Like Stars, which is a book I got on Christmas, but I ordered it myself on Amazon. And it is kind of about a stage production, I think. The main character is named Beatrice Shakespeare, and I just thought it was really interesting because it had some of the fairies from Midsummer Night's Dream, Throne of Glass. Got it from Cambria for my birthday, and I just haven't gotten around to it. Next is my very small Lunar Chronicles collection. I got these two from my friend Marian for my birthday, and I haven't read them yet, Scarlet and Crest. So up on top we have Across the Universe by Beth Revis, which I got at a used bookstore, and it was kind of like Ruby Red. It wasn't terrible, it wasn't bad, it wasn't amazing, it was just a solid, good book. Then I have Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini Taylor, which is the third book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. So good, so wonderful, I love it so much. Next, of course, is The Evolution of Mara Dyer, which is the second book in the Mara Dyer series, and I got this signed, and it's just so good, and I'm so excited for the third book, and I'm so mad it's not out yet. And if you haven't read that series, I will punch you in the face. Then, of course, I have the one which I got from Target when it came out, but at Target I found a signed copy, so that made my day. I gave this 3.5 stars because it just was not the finale I wanted. I have The Last Olympian by Rick Riordan, which is the last book in the Percy Jackson series, and I got it from my aunt who got a signed copy. I don't know how she did this. Signed copy from my aunt. For no reason. I have my copy of Allegiant by Veronica Roth, the third book in the Divergent series, and I got it signed a couple months ago when I met Veronica Roth. Well, I saw her at a premiere for the Divergent movie, and that was really cool. And then, of course, we have Ignite Me, which is the third book in the Shatter Me series. Oh god, if you haven't read that series, read that series because it's so perfect. This is a signed copy as well. Obviously, this is like my signed copies area. And then at the bottom is Into the Still Blue, the third book in the Under the Never Sky series. I also got that signed by the author, Veronica Rossi. These are pretty much all of my, like, 2 books in a series, if you know what I mean. Except for the top one, which is Mind Games by Kirsten White, which I also got signed at a signing. If you're looking for a book with girl power and like feminism and stuff like that, that one just makes me so happy. Then, of course, I have my Darkest Minds books. I'm so excited for In the Afterlight. It's gonna be so good. These are just the first 2 in the series, and they're wonderful. If you haven't read them yet, I don't know what you're doing. Then is my Angel Fall collection by Susan E., which I have not read yet. Then is my Matched 2 books, last 2 books in the Matched series. Crossed is probably the worst book I have ever read, ever. I hated it. If you read the Matched series, maybe read Matched and then call it a day. Don't read the second one, it sucks. I do have Reached. I am gonna read it someday. I'm not sure when because that series annoys me. And then, of course, I have, I think it's like the Dreamcatcher series or something, but Wake and Fade by Lisa McMahon. I don't have Gone. I haven't read Gone. I sort of fell off with the series after the second one. And then, of course, all the way at the bottom, the Legend series. I have the second one on my Nook, but I did buy the series. So if you know that I don't like it, I do have it, so I'm not a complete mean person. That is my 3rd shelf. Now we're down to the 4th shelf, which is really, really low. As you can tell, it has a very good collection of books. And this is my Mortal Instruments Cassandra Clare section. I have all 6 of the Mortal Instruments books, including City of Heavenly Fire. And next to it, I have Clockwork Princess, which is the only book I have from the Infernal Devices. My story with Cassandra Clare is I knew she had books. Like, I didn't know she personally had books, but I had heard of the Mortal Instruments probably back at the beginning of high school. I had an acquaintance who I knew was reading it in class, and it just, I don't know, I never went after it. And then I had a couple people tell me, you should read it, and then everybody in BookTube kind of liked it, and I still didn't read it. And then the movie trailer came out like last January, and I was like, okay, fine, this looks kind of interesting, and everybody in the trailer looks really attractive, so fine, I'll read the books. So I read the first book last March 2013, and all throughout the month of March last year, I read the first 5, and I did marathon reads, so I did them back to back to back to back to back, which was not a smart idea, but I really enjoyed them, and they were really good. And then after that, I read The Infernal Devices over the summer, and they just were so much better than The Mortal Instruments. So exciting, so wonderful. This is my second favorite book of all time, by the way. And then, of course, you know, I read City of Heavenly Fire like last week maybe when it came out, and I did a huge video thing for it, and it was really good, and I cried multiple times. It was just really good. Cassandra Clare will always hold a special place in my heart. I just love that lady. Then, of course, we have The Hunger Games. So, I don't know if you know this. I'm sure I've talked about it before, but I found The Hunger Games before pretty much everybody else did. The reason I found The Hunger Games was because of Stephenie Meyer. Back in 2008, I was a huge Twilight fan. Breaking Dawn was coming out. It was a great year. And, of course, Stephenie Meyer had a very crappy website, and I checked her website constantly. And she had one day where she blogged, and she was like, you should read this book, because I was trying to hide it under the table at this dinner that I went to, and I just couldn't stop reading it, and I was like, okay, that sounds exciting and fun. So I picked it up. Get to the end. I think I was one of those people who didn't really know it was going to be a trilogy, so I got to the end, and I was like, end of book 1. End of book 1. Where is book 2? I went on the internet like all of us do, and it wasn't coming out until like 2010 or 2009, and I was just so angry. But I had to wait about a year for Catching Fire, and I got it the day it came out. I remember going into the store, and I went back to the car, and my whole family was there. We were like going on a road trip or something. When Mockingjay came out, I had to wait a year for Mockingjay, and I got it late, and so then I was angry at the bookstore, and I got it, and I read it in 7 hours. I can't wait for the movies. They're gonna be so good. We have my J.K. Rowling Harry Potter section, and this is the Harry Potter series. I'm sure you know that. You've read it. It's wonderful. The first 5 I actually got for my birthday when I was in 4th grade or 5th grade, I think. I was about 9 when I got the first 5 for my birthday. And then I got Half-Blood Prince the day it came out at Walmart. I got Deathly Hallows the day it came out at Barnes & Noble. Did not go to a midnight release because I'm crazy. Those are some of the best books of my entire life. Then, of course, we have the J.K. Rowling collection, which I haven't really read yet. Started Casual Vacancy when it came out 2 years ago. Wow. And I'm about 100 pages in, and I just haven't finished it. I got The Cuckoo's Calling last year, a little bit after it came out, and I've heard it's good and people like it, but I haven't read it, so. And then all the way over here we have Tales of Beetle the Bard and Harry a History. Harry a History is my all-time favorite nonfiction book. It's one of my top books of all time. It's just beautiful and I love it, and if you haven't read it but you're a Harry Potter fan, go read it. Standing over here is my Book Lovers Soy Candle, which I got from Laura, and it's Hufflepuff smell, and it's just beautiful. That is my 4th shelf. Now we're all the way at the last shelf, the 5th shelf. This is like my nostalgia shelf. These are books that I read in middle school, in elementary school, and they're like kids books. It's all over the place, but it's like a really big nostalgia shelf. I have my 2nd set of Twilight books because I sold my first set. I've had an up and down relationship with Twilight, like I'm sure you have. I fell in love with it when I was in 7th grade, and then by the time I was in 9th grade, I was like, no, I hate Twilight. Why would you read Twilight? Twilight sucks. Sell my Twilight books. Last year, maybe, or the year before, I just got this strong urge to reread them, and I was like, I miss Twilight. As terrible as I think it is sometimes, I do miss it, and it is like a huge part of my life because it was such a huge part of my life. So I bought the set again, and I have not read this short Second Life of Bree Tanner. It came with the set, but it just doesn't interest me, so I have it, but I probably will never read it. And then over here is a small portion of the series of unfortunate events. I got all these at a used bookstore recently, and I've just had this strong craving to reread the series, and I reread the first one, but I still have yet to do the rest of them. Then we have the Septimus Heap series by Angie Sage, which I read the first 3 back in middle school, and the first 3 were really good. I obviously got the fourth one, but I never read it because at that point I was older and I didn't really want to read it. I really like the series because one of the main characters is a princess, and her name, of course, is Jenna. So in that world, I am a princess. I have some serious childhood books. So we have Frindle, which I got in 3rd grade from my 3rd grade teacher, and I haven't read it since, but it was, you know, one of those nostalgia books that I found in the basement, and I was like, hey, I'll put that on my bookshelf. Holes, which everybody read in elementary school, and it's just a classic children's book. Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, and it was okay. As you saw, I read the whole series in January for the first time, and I had never really thought I would like Percy Jackson, but the sass is just too much, and it's too great, so I had to read it. Hoot by Carl Hiaasen, which was a movie that came out a couple years ago around my birthday, and I was really interested in seeing it because it had Cody Lindley and Logan Lerman. And then we have Betwixt, which I picked up on a whim at Borders, I think. The same time I got Shrinking Violet, I picked this up, and it was really random, but it's really a pretty book, and it sounded interesting. It was very weird. I'm still waiting for the sequel because I want to know what happens. It was very strange. I would probably not recommend it because it's so weird. Then we have House of Hades. I have not read The Heroes of Olympus. I should be doing that right now, actually, for my readathon. But I got this because I bought the whole series for my brother for his birthday. And of course, Amazon had a sale. House of Hades was $10 on the internet, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to read this series one day, and I'm going to want to buy House of Hades. Now I can just buy it for $10 and have it for later. Story of my life. Anne of Green Gables, which I got from my grandma, and I've read a version of it at one point, but I don't think I've read this version. The Tale of Despero, which I begged my parents to get me from the book fair one year. It's just really cute and pretty, and it's one of my favorite children's books. It's so great. And then, of course, I have The Chronicles of Narnia, which is another one of my favorite series. It's like a children's series, but it's centered around faith, and it's just so good. Great characters. I love C.S. Lewis, and the series holds a special place in my heart personally because my 4th grade teacher spent long periods of time throughout the year where he would have us all sit down, and he'd turn off all the lights, and he would turn on his microphone because he had a microphone, and he would just read the series out loud. The only books he did not read to us were Prince Caspian and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but every single other book he read out loud for us, and that's the first time that I read The Chronicles of Narnia. And finally, the last one is Children of the Lamp, the Akhenaten Adventure, which is another book I begged my parents for from the book fair. You know book fairs. You buy books that you don't really need. I begged my parents for this book, and they ended up giving it to me when I was in elementary school, and they like wrote in it an inscription, and they were like, congratulations on getting the honor roll, and now you can read this book, and it was about 3rd grade, I think. And of course, get the book, start the book, get about 5 pages in and realize, you know what, I don't want to read this. This isn't that great. I'm not going to read this. Try to sell it later at a garage sale, realize it isn't scripted with writing from my mother. Cannot sell the book. So now it will stare at me in the face for the rest of eternity until I read it. That is my nostalgia shelf, and a lot of these books are pretty dear to my heart. So, that's exciting. That was my bookshelf tour. I know, I have a lot of books, I'm sorry, but it's nothing compared to Kat. Kat has like 600 books, and I don't understand how that happened. I hope this ties you over, and thank you for watching. If you watched all the way through, I really appreciate it. If you did not watch all the way through, though, totally understand. So, yeah, see ya in the future. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.